So Dr. Gordon Thompson is an executive director at the Institute for Resource and Security Studies in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And he does technical and policy studies on issues related to sustainability and global human security. And he's done many studies on risks associated with nuclear facilities and on options for reducing those risks. So Dr. Thompson is here with us to discuss risks arising from the storage of spent fuel at the Pickering nuclear site in Ontario. And he wrote a report on that subject in 2018. So thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Thompson. We'll just go straight to our questions. Tell us what's happening with the spent fuel at the Pickering station now.
Hi, Brene. Well, at Pickering, there are 8 nuclear power reactors. The first of them entered service in 1971. And so they're pretty old. They've been running on and off throughout that entire period. And they're constantly generating spent fuel. Spent means the fuel is no longer useful to produce power. It's intensely radioactive and produces heat and has to be guarded. Initially, it's stored in pools underwater, and then it's transferred to dry storage containers. By the end of this year, 2024, projections are that there'll be about 3,000 of these containers stored at Pickering. Each of these containers is a large steel and concrete cask, and each one contains about 380 fuel bundles. So by the end of this year, we're looking at a total of about in excess of 1 million fuel bundles.
And is the Pickering situation unusual, or is that?
Well, let me just go on a little bit. There's no current option for removing this spent fuel from Pickering. And this is common for nuclear power plants around the world, in terms of your question about what is usual. Only one country in the world is actually building a repository, an underground repository for radioactive waste, and that's in Finland. There is no repository in Canada or in the United States or anywhere else. So the practice at nuclear power plants around the world is to accumulate the spent fuel on site. And in the case of Pickering, the Canadian Waste Management Organization says that the waste could be there for at least 90 years. And given past histories of radioactive waste programs, it could be much longer than that, potentially hundreds of years or even indefinitely.
So what are the risks with having the spent fuel? What are the spent fuel risks at Pickering?
The quantity of radioactive material is quite impressive. The casks I described through the end of this year could hold about 90 tons of plutonium. The average nuclear warhead operated by a nuclear weapon state contains 3 to 4 kilograms of plutonium. An amount of 10 kilograms is sufficient for a non-state group to build a nuclear weapon. So we're talking about amounts of plutonium at Pickering, thousands of times greater than needed to create a nuclear weapon. The amount of radioactive cesium in storage at the end of this year will be in excess of 10,000 petabecquerels. A petabecquerel is a unit of radioactivity. In the Fukushima accident of 2011, about 6 petabecquerels fell on Japan. Substantial areas of Japan are still unfit for human occupation. 6 petabecquerels, and Pickering will hold about 10,000 or more of these units. So we're talking about truly massive quantities of radioactive material and weapons-related plutonium. And the question is, how might this material be released? And there's two broad options. One is just general degradation, institutional degradation over the decades of storage, and physical degradation of the materials. And the other risk area is attack, to release material at the site or to take it away and release it somewhere else for a malevolent purpose, as a crude nuclear weapon or as a radiological weapon. And again, we're talking about decades with potential degradation of site security, maintenance, and the physical nature of the casks themselves.
Mm.
So in broad terms, those are the risks.
So how could those spent fuel risks be reduced at the Pickering site or other sites, but looking at Pickering, how would we reduce those risks?
The short way of saying it is hardened on-site storage, HOSS, which is a familiar concept nowadays to many environmentalists. What this would mean at Pickering is to build a large fortress-type structure on the site, which would be much more secure and long-lasting than the lightweight buildings that the licensee is currently using, intends to use. Constructing this fortress structure would be greatly facilitated by early decommissioning of Pickering station. Contrary to the current plans of refurbishing 4 of the units for decades to come, which is a foolish idea on multiple grounds. This fortress structure would be a constant reminder that this is an unsolved problem. Waste would no longer be out of sight, out of mind, sort of hidden in a nondescript shed on the site. It would be visible to all, and it would be vastly more secure than is currently the condition. So that, in a nutshell, is our option for risk reduction at Pickering.